I met him in my own company. He didn't know it was mine, and I didn't tell him. After my first marriage ended in betrayal and court battles, I learned something the hard way. Never lead with your wealth. Never let a man meet your bank account before he meets your heart. So, when I saw Marcus sitting in the conference room that morning in Atlanta, confident but humble, interviewing for a regional operations role, I introduced myself as Danielle, senior manager. Not founder, not CEO, not owner, just Danielle. And that decision would change everything. Marcus was different. He was funny, the kind of man who could make an entire room laugh without trying. He'd bring coffee to my office and say, "A hard-working woman like you deserves better than that machine downstairs." I would smile, pretending I was just another employee climbing the ladder. We started having lunch together, then dinners, then weekends. He told me about his 3 children from his previous marriage, 2 daughters and a son. He spoke about them with pride, though they were grown and distant. "They don't really come around much," he once admitted, "but they will, one day." 6 months later, he moved into my house. Well, the house he thought was just our home, a 6-bedroom modern property in Buckhead. High ceilings, marble floors, smart glass windows overlooking the city. He thought I was doing well for myself. He didn't know I signed the purchase documents. He didn't know my name was on every deed. And for the first time in years, I felt safe, being loved without my title standing in the room. The first time his children came to visit, I cooked. I didn't have to. I could have had the chef prepare something, but I wanted it to feel real. They looked around the house with wide eyes. His oldest daughter whispered to her sister, "Dad finally made it." I said nothing. Marcus wrapped his arm around me proudly. He said, "This is my wife." I froze. Wife? We were not married, but he said it so naturally, so confidently, so repeatedly. My wife this, my wife that. I corrected him once in private. He kissed my forehead and said, "It's just a word, baby. You're my forever." And I let it go. Maybe that was my mistake. The coughing started in the winter. Then the hospital visits. Then the diagnosis. Stage 4 pancreatic cancer. The doctor's voice sounded distant when he said, "We caught it late." Marcus squeezed my hand. The children suddenly became very present, very attentive, very calculating. They stayed longer when they visited. They asked subtle questions. "So, Dad, did you ever update your will? Dad, this house is paid off, right? Dad, you own the shares to the company too, right?" I watched their eyes when they looked at me. Not with warmth, not with gratitude, with suspicion. One evening, I overheard his son say in the kitchen, "She hit the jackpot. She's set for life." I was standing in the hallway, holding Marcus's medication. My hands were shaking. They believed I was living off their father. They believed this house, this life, this company belonged to him, and that I was the lucky woman who attached herself to a dying man. The irony was almost poetic. As Marcus grew weaker, they grew bolder. They stopped greeting me, stopped thanking me for cooking, started giving instructions in my home. One evening, his oldest daughter looked me dead in the eye and said, "When Dad is gone, we'll need time to sort through everything." Sort through everything? In my house? The disrespect didn't explode. It simmered. Quiet comments, side glances, closed-door conversations. They treated me like an outsider waiting for eviction. And still, I said nothing. Because I loved his father, and I would not stress him in his final days with pride or confrontation. It was quiet. Machines humming softly. He held my hand and whispered, "You've been the best thing that ever happened to me." Tears slid down my face. He never knew. Never knew that every hospital bill had already been handled through my private accounts. Never knew that his salary was a fraction of what I earned monthly. Never knew that the promotion he received 2 years ago came from my signature. He believed he had provided for me, and maybe that gave him peace, so I never took that away. The funeral was elegant. I made sure of that. 3 days later, they showed up. Not to grieve, to claim. The son carried a folder. The daughters walked through the house as if measuring furniture. "We'll need the keys," the oldest said calmly. "Dad would have wanted this handled properly." I sat in the living room, dressed in white. Calm. Silent. They assumed silence meant weakness. The son cleared his throat. "We spoke to a lawyer. As his children, we are the rightful heirs." I finally spoke. "To what?" I asked gently. "To his estate," he replied. I folded my hands. "This house is in my name, purchased 8 years before I met your father." Silence. "The company you believe he owned? I founded it 12 years ago. I am the CEO. Their faces shifted. Confusion, disbelief, anger. "That's not possible," one daughter snapped. I stood up and walked to the drawer beside the fireplace, pulled out the property deed. My name, Danielle Carter. I handed them a copy of the company registration documents, founder and chief executive officer. Me. Their father owned nothing here. He lived here. He was loved here. He was cared here. But he did not build this. I did. The son's voice cracked first. "So Dad didn't leave us anything?" I looked at him. Really looked at him. "Your father left you memories, opportunities, his love. But you were so focused on inheritance, you forgot to inherit his heart." I wasn't cruel. I wasn't bitter. I was tired. They left quietly that day. No apology, no gratitude, just the heavy sound of entitlement collapsing. Grief teaches you who people really are. Love hides nothing forever, and silence can be power when you know the truth. I never exposed my wealth to test him. I hid it to protect my peace. In the end, he died thinking he was my provider, and I let him, because sometimes love isn't about correction, it's about dignity. They came for their father's inheritance, not knowing their father lived on my wealth. And the greatest irony, if they had treated me like family, I would have shared everything.